Hello, I'm SA, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
The air in the University of Michigan's Mathematics Department in 1949 carried the distinct weight of intellectual examination. Within its halls, a quiet and profound transformation was taking place, embodied by Marjorie Lee Browne as she stood before her doctoral committee. This moment represented the culmination of years of intense study, a defense of a dissertation that would place her alongside Evelyn Boyd Granville, who earned her degree from Yale that same year as one of the first two African-American women to secure a doctorate in mathematics. Her achievement was a landmark of personal genius and perseverance, forged within the demanding world of pure mathematics. The document she defended, titled on the one-parameter subgroups in certain topological and matrix groups, was a sophisticated piece of research that delved into one of the most foundational areas of modern algebra and analysis. Her work confronted a deep and subtle problem in the theory of topological groups. A topological group is an elegant fusion of two fundamental mathematical concepts that is a space possessing a continuous geometric structure, the topology, and simultaneously an algebraic structure, a group. The two are required to coexist harmoniously, meaning the group operations of multiplication and inversion are continuous functions. Imagine the collection of all possible rotations of a sphere. Any rotation can be smoothly deformed into another, giving it a topological character. Concurrently, any two rotations can be combined to produce a third, giving it a group character. Brown's research focused on a particularly vital feature of these objects of the one-parameter subgroup. Conceptually, a one-parameter subgroup is a continuous, flowing path through the group that respects the group's algebraic rules at every step. It is a smooth embedding of the real number line into the group, a continuous journey that begins at the group's identity element, the point of origin, and unfolds according to the group's intrinsic geometry. The precise intellectual challenge Brown addressed was the characterization of these one-parameter subgroups in a small neighborhood of the identity element. Understanding the local behavior of a topological group near its identity is paramount. It is akin to understanding the entire structure of a crystal by examining the arrangement of atoms in a single unit cell. Her dissertation provided a rigorous description of the family of these paths, detailing how they populate the space immediately surrounding the central point. Her methodology was a testament to the high-level training she received under her advisor, the Russian-born mathematician and physicist George Yuri Raynish. Raynish was a scholar whose own work sought to unify electromagnetism and general relativity through a purely geometric framework, a quest that placed him in the intellectual lineage of the great French mathematician Élie Cartan. It was Cartan's revolutionary theories on differential geometry and Lie groups, which are smooth, differentiable topological groups, that provided the powerful conceptual machinery for this type of analysis. Brown, through Raynish, was therefore wielding some of the most advanced geometric and analytical tools of her time. A specific and telling example of her contribution can be found in her treatment of subgroups in the neighborhood of a singular element. Within the landscape of a matrix group, a singular element is a point where the standard, well-behaved properties break down. For instance, a matrix that lacks an inverse. These are points of structural irregularity, and understanding how continuous paths behave as they approach or pass through these anomalies is a far more difficult task than analyzing smooth regions. Brown's proofs offered a precise classification of the one-parameter subgroups in these challenging vicinities. Her work provided a map of the territory at its most complex junctures, demonstrating a command of abstract concepts that could handle the exceptions and the edge cases where the deepest structural truths are often revealed. She was exploring the fine-grained geometric texture of an abstract algebraic space using analytical techniques to illuminate its properties. This doctoral work, a triumph of pure mathematical inquiry, established the rigorous foundation upon which her entire career would be built. The abstract world of topological groups may seem distant from everyday concerns, yet its importance is immense. The study of these structures, particularly the Lie groups that were a special case of her investigation, remains a cornerstone of modern abstract algebra. Furthermore, these same mathematical objects have found profound and unexpected applications in theoretical physics. The symmetries that govern the fundamental forces of nature, as described by gauge theory and the standard model of particle physics, were expressed in the language of Lie groups. Brown's abstract exploration of the local structure of these groups was a contribution to a vast intellectual enterprise, one whose ultimate implications reach into our deepest understanding of the physical universe. Her dissertation was an act of pure scholarship, a demonstration of her ability to navigate and contribute to the frontiers of abstract thought. This formidable intellectual power, wound in the quiet halls of Ann Arbor, would soon be aimed at a new and entirely different kind of challenge, the construction of a mathematical institution capable of fostering such power in others. Her arrival at North Carolina College at Durham in 1941 marked a profound pivot in her latest work. The intellectual tools she had sharpened on the abstract structures of topological groups were now directed toward a challenge of immense practical and social consequence. The institution, which would later become North Carolina Central University, was rich in aspiration and human potential. It was, however, materially impoverished, operating within the severe constraints imposed by a segregated American South. The environment presented a stark reality. The path to advanced mathematics for African-American students was a road with few signposts and even fewer resources. The central problem confronting Marjorie Lee Browne was therefore architectural in nature. It involved designing and building an entire academic infrastructure capable of nurturing mathematical talent from undergraduate promise to graduate-level excellence, a feat requiring a vision that soared beyond the chalkboard and into the corridors of power, finance, and technological revolution. Her response was a masterclass in strategic foresight. She understood with absolute clarity that producing first-rate mathematicians required a first-rate academic environment. This meant that her own considerable intellectual labor had to be channeled into the often unglamorous, yet utterly essential, work of institutional construction. She became a grant writer, a long-range planner, and a technological evangelist. Her objective was to secure for her students the tools and opportunities that were becoming standard at the nation's elite research universities. This was a campaign waged on multiple fronts, requiring a deep understanding of the shifting landscape of federal and philanthropic funding, coupled with an unwavering belief in the potential of the students she served. Her work in this period demonstrates a powerful synthesis of academic leadership and administrative acumen, a combination that would permanently alter the trajectory of her university and the lives of countless individuals. A pivotal moment in this campaign, a genuine watershed, arrived in 1960. The world was entering the digital age. The massive vacuum tube-filled machines that had been the exclusive domain of government laboratories and Ivy League universities were giving way to more accessible, transistor-based computers. Browne recognized that the burgeoning fields of numerical analysis, data processing, and algorithmic thinking represented a new frontier of mathematical application. For her students to compete, for them to enter graduate programs, or the burgeoning tech industry on equal footing, access to this technology was indispensable. The problem was one of capital. The cost of a digital computer was far beyond the budget of a state-funded college for black students in North Carolina. Her solution was audacious. As a principal investigator, she authored and submitted a proposal to the International Business Machines Corporation, better known as IBM. The result was a grant of $60,000. To appreciate the scale of this achievement, one must place it in its time. This sum is equivalent to well over $500,000 in today's currency. It was an extraordinary infusion of capital that Browne immediately put to use, acquiring a digital computer, likely an IBM 6150 magnetic drum data processing machine, a workhorse of the era. With this single, decisive action, she established one of the very first computer centers at any historically black college or university in the United States. This was more than an equipment purchase, it was a declaration. It brought a piece of the computational future to Durham, physically manifesting the principle that intellectual opportunity should transcend the bitter logic of segregation. The machine's arrival transformed the campus. Students could now learn programming languages like Fortran and SOAP, run complex simulations, and engage directly with the technological revolution that was reshaping science and industry. The direct influence of this accomplishment radiated outward, touching generations of NCCU students. They were now equipped with a rare and valuable skill set. They could pursue advanced degrees in mathematics, statistics, and the nascent field of computer science with a background that was competitive with students from any institution. They were prepared for careers at places like NASA, Bell Laboratories, and IBM itself, organizations hungry for talent with computational expertise. Browne's foresight provided a direct pathway to professional and intellectual worlds that had previously been almost entirely inaccessible. She had laid down a technological cornerstone upon which a modern science, technology, and mathematics curriculum could be built. This initial victory was followed by a period of consolidation and expansion. Having secured the hardware, Browne turned her attention to the human and curricular infrastructure needed to support it. A decade of persistent effort culminated in another major success in 1969. When she secured a substantial grant from the prestigious Ford Foundation. This grant was specifically targeted at strengthening the university's graduate programs in the sciences and mathematics. It enabled her to formalize what she had been doing informally for years, creating a robust pipeline for her most promising students. The funds established a fellowship program that provided financial support for NCCU graduates to attend doctoral programs at universities across the country. It was a tangible investment in human capital, ensuring that the next generation of African-American mathematicians and scientists would have the support to reach the highest levels of academia. The Ford Foundation grant also fueled a significant expansion of the curriculum, allowing the department to offer more specialized, advanced coursework that fully leveraged the computational power Browne had secured years earlier. Through these monumental efforts, Marjorie Lee Browne functioned as the chief architect of a mathematical powerhouse. The IBM and Ford Foundation grants were the financial scaffolding. The computer center was a powerful engine at its core. The fellowship programs and expanded curriculum were the meticulously drafted blueprints for its operation. Her legacy from this period is measured in institutional capacity and the enduring structures she built to identify, nurture, and propel talent. She transformed the mathematics department at North Carolina Central University from a small teaching-oriented unit into a dynamic ecosystem of learning and research, a place capable of producing scholars who were fully prepared for the intellectual demands of the modern world. With the department now fortified by unprecedented resources and technology, Browne's attention increasingly turned toward the very substance of mathematical pedagogy, aiming to reshape how mathematics was understood and taught far beyond the university's walls. The same intelligence that architected the modern department also possessed a rare talent for illuminating the deepest mathematical ideas for others. With the institutional foundations at North Carolina Central University secured, Marjorie Lee Browne directed her formidable energies toward a challenge of national importance, the very substance of mathematical education itself. The intellectual climate of the late 1950s and 1960s was charged with a sense of urgency, catalyzed by the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957. This singular event sent a shockwave through the American political and academic establishment, creating a widespread perception of a missile gap that was, at its core, a mathematics and science gap. The response was a massive federal investment in education and a revolutionary, albeit controversial, curricular movement that came to be known as the New Math. This movement sought to overhaul mathematics education from the ground up. The pedagogical emphasis was on fostering deep conceptual understanding, supplanting rote memorization and computational drill as the primary educational objectives. The curriculum was rebuilt around the foundational pillars of 20th century mathematics: set theory, abstract algebraic structures like groups and fields, and formal logic. The idea was to present mathematics as a coherent, logical system, a beautiful and powerful language for describing patterns, rather than a collection of disconnected rules and algorithms. The problem, however, was one of translation. The architects of the new math were university mathematicians, thinking in terms of axiomatic systems and abstract structures. The people tasked with implementing this vision were in service high school teachers, many of whom were trained in a completely different, more classical and computational mathematical tradition. A chasm opened between the elegant theories of the reformers and the practical realities of the American classroom. It was precisely this chasm that Browne set out to bridge. She recognized the immense potential of the new math to cultivate genuine mathematical thinking, while also seeing with perfect clarity the profound need for a cadre of teachers who could wield these new tools with confidence and insight. Her solution was a masterstroke of pedagogical strategy, the creation of a series of summer institutes at North Carolina Central University, specifically designed for in-service high school mathematics teachers. Securing continuous funding from the National Science Foundation, Browne became the director and lead instructor for these intensive programs for 13 consecutive summers, from 1958 through 1971. This was an extraordinary commitment, a sustained effort to re-educate an entire generation of educators. The curriculum Browne designed for these institutes was a model of intellectual empathy and pedagogical brilliance. She took the core, often intimidating, subjects of the new math, abstract algebra, number theory, set theory, and even introductory topology, and rendered them accessible. Her method was to reveal the profound connections between these abstract structures and the familiar content of the high school curriculum. The teachers who arrived in her classroom departed with a command of the logical structures underpinning the formulas they had long taught. Set theory was presented as the fundamental language for organizing all mathematical objects, providing a unifying framework for everything from arithmetic operations to geometric figures. Consider her approach to teaching a concept like an equivalence relation, a cornerstone of abstract algebra. In a typical university course, this would be defined formally a relation that is reflexive, symmetric, and transitive. Browne's genius was to animate this definition with tangible, relevant examples. She would begin with the integers, a familiar landscape for any math teacher. She would demonstrate how the relation has the same remainder when divided by two partitions, the entire set of integers into two distinct, non-overlapping classes, the even numbers and the odd numbers. This, she would explain, is an equivalence class. She would then pivot to geometry, showing how the relation of congruence for triangles partitions the set all possible triangles into families of identical shapes and sizes. The relation of similarity does the same, grouping triangles by shape alone. Through these carefully chosen examples, she revealed a deep truth of the abstract concept of an equivalence relation was a powerful tool for classification that the teachers were already using implicitly. Her instruction gave them the explicit language and conceptual framework to understand its unifying power across different mathematical domains. Likewise, her courses in linear algebra were designed to eliminate the geometry of transformations. Teachers learned that a matrix was more than an array of numbers for solving systems of equations. It was an operator that could rotate, reflect, scale, and share geometric space. This perspective transformed topics like trigonometry and coordinate geometry from static calculations into dynamic explorations of motion and symmetry. The teachers in her institutes were themselves transformed. They came to Durham for the summer. Often apprehensive about the new curriculum they were expected to teach, left as confident ambassadors of modern mathematics. They had been given more than new lesson plans. They had been given a new way of seeing the entire mathematical enterprise. The direct influence of this work was immense and radiated outward. Over 13 years, hundreds of teachers from across North Carolina and neighboring states passed through her summer institutes. Each of these teachers returned to their own high schools, affecting the mathematical education of thousands of students annually. Browne's pedagogical work was a powerful force multiplier. By focusing her efforts on teachers, she strategically intervened at the most critical leverage point in the educational system. She was, in effect, training the trainers, creating a network of educators who could disseminate a deeper, more conceptual understanding of mathematics throughout the region. This was a profound act of community empowerment and intellectual uplift, executed with the precision of a mathematical proof. Through this sustained effort, Browne's influence extended far beyond the walls of North Carolina Central University, reshaping the landscape of secondary mathematics education and nurturing the intellectual soil from which future scientists and mathematicians would grow. This deep engagement with the transmission of mathematical knowledge formed a vital current in her professional life, flowing alongside her own persistent inquiries into the abstract topological structures that had first captured her imagination. The profound commitment to mathematical clarity that animated Marjorie Lee Browne's pedagogical work also fueled her personal research. Her intellectual journey continued deep into the abstract realms that had first captivated her as a graduate student. She turned her attention toward the family of classical groups, those elegant and foundational structures that serve as the bedrock for much of modern geometry and physics. The central challenge in this area during the mid-20th century was the ongoing, meticulous work of classifying and understanding their intricate topological properties. These were objects of immense complexity, and the task was to find pathways through their structures that were both rigorous and illuminating. It was within this demanding context that Browne produced her 1955 paper, A Note on the Classical Groups, a work of quiet brilliance published in the American Mathematical Monthly. This paper exemplifies a particularly valuable form of scholarship, the art of profound simplification. The core results concerning the topology of classical groups were known within the specialized research community, often through the formidable work of giants like Eli Cartan. The existing proofs, however, were frequently long, computationally intensive, and accessible only to those already steeped in the formidable machinery of Lie theory. Browne's contribution was to distill this complexity. She developed new, beautifully self-contained proofs for essential properties of these groups, particularly the orthogonal group, which she would denote as O of n, and the unitary group U of n. Her work was an act of intellectual generosity, translating esoteric knowledge into a form that a wider audience of mathematicians and advanced students could grasp and appreciate. Her methodology was a direct inheritance from her doctoral advisor, George Uri Ranish, and by extension, from the geometric school of thought championed by Cartan himself. Ranish was a geometer at heart, always seeking the intuitive, coordinate-free picture that lay beneath dense algebraic formalisms. Browne embraced this philosophy completely. In her paper, she sidestepped the heavy reliance on matrix coordinates that characterized many other treatments. She instead favored a purely geometric approach. For instance, when analyzing the orthogonal group O of n, the set of all distance preserving transformations like rotations and reflections in n-dimensional Euclidean space, her methods made its fundamental structure almost palpable. She demonstrated that this group consists of two separate, disconnected pieces. One piece contains all the transformations that can be continuously deformed back to the identity of the pure rotations. The other piece contains all the reflections. Her geometric argument rendered the schism transparent, a feat of exposition that algebraic proofs sometimes obscure in a thicket of determinate calculations. Similarly, her treatment of the unitary group U of n, the complex number analog of the orthogonal group, was marked by the same lucid elegance. The unitary group is of paramount importance in physics, as its elements describe the evolution of quantum mechanical systems. Understanding its topological properties, such as its connectedness and compactness, is essential for the entire theoretical framework of quantum theory. Browne's paper provided direct, insightful proofs of these properties, making the foundational mathematics of quantum mechanics more accessible. Her work functioned as a masterclass in mathematical communication, showing that a deep result is made all the more powerful when its proof is as beautiful and clear as the theorem itself. The direct influence of the Cartan-Raynish lineage is unmistakable. Cartan's genius was to see Lie groups as smooth, curved spaces, or manifolds endowed with a group structure. This geometric perspective is the key that unlocks their secrets. Browne's paper is a pure expression of this viewpoint. By treating the elements of the groups as points in a geometric space, she could use tools of topology and geometry to explore their relationships, foregoing the need for cumbersome matrix manipulations. Her work stands as a testament to the power of a good idea, demonstrating how a powerful conceptual framework, once established, can be wielded by subsequent scholars to refine, clarify, and extend our understanding. While her 1955 paper may have been aimed at clarification, its enduring relevance is profound. The classical groups she studied are more central to science and technology today than ever before. The special unitary group SU2, a close relative of the groups in her paper, governs the electroweak interaction in the standard model of particle physics. The special unitary group SU3 provides the mathematical language for quantum chromodynamics, the theory of the strong nuclear force that binds quarks together inside protons and neutrons. Her elegant exposition of these structures provided a clearer pathway for generations of physicists and mathematicians to master the tools of their trade. The connection to contemporary technology is even more direct. In the burgeoning field of quantum computing, the unitary group U of n is the absolute protagonist. A quantum computation is, in essence, a sequence of carefully chosen unitary transformations applied to a set of quantum bits or qubits. Each logical operation, each quantum gate, corresponds to an element of a unitary group. The ability to navigate the space of transformations, to understand its geometry and topology, is fundamental to designing quantum algorithms. Browne's work, in its effort to make the structure of these groups transparent, thus forms part of the deep intellectual heritage that underpins some of our most advanced computational ambitions. Her paper was a piece of incremental scholarship, a careful polishing of a corner of the vast mathematical edifice. Yet this is precisely how a field matures. It advances through grand, paradigm-shifting leaps and also through the vital, meticulous work of scholars like Browne, who strengthen the foundations, clarify the concepts, and ensure the knowledge is secure and transmissible. This act of clarification was itself a form of the intellectual stewardship, a way of nurturing the mathematical ecosystem that ran parallel to her more direct efforts in the classroom and through teacher training. It was another current in the same river, flowing toward the creation and dissemination of mathematical understanding. The intellectual stewardship manifest in her topological research found its ultimate and most personal expression in the final phase of her life. This was an era defined by a profound act of direct investment in the future, a gesture that crystallized her lifelong philosophy into a tangible, enduring legacy. With the foresight of a seasoned strategist, she established the Marjorie Lee Browne Trust Fund at North Carolina Central University. This was a remarkable commitment, funded substantially from her own savings and the eventual proceeds from the sale of her home. The purpose of the fund was crystalline in its clarity to provide scholarships and financial support for the most gifted mathematics students, ensuring that economic hardship would present a lesser obstacle to intellectual ascent. This practice of giving continued until her passing in 1979, a quiet, consistent transfer of personal wealth into intellectual potential. This act of philanthropy serves as the capstone for her life's work, revealing the central thesis of her career, viewing her contributions as a sequence of distinct achievements, a dissertation here, a grant there, a summer institute elsewhere, is to miss the profound unity of her purpose. Her entire professional life constitutes a single, integrated intellectual project. The overarching goal was a holistic advancement of the mathematical enterprise itself. She pursued this objective through a brilliantly conceived, multi-pronged strategy aimed at strengthening every component of the academic ecosystem. The first prong was the creation of new knowledge. Her dissertation on one-parameter subgroups in certain topological and matrix groups, completed under the guidance of George Rappels, was a genuine contribution to the field. It expanded the understanding of the deep structures connecting algebra and geometry, a piece of the vast intellectual puzzle that continues to inform modern physics and computation. This was a foundational act of a scholar adding a new, carefully verified theorem to the shared repository of human understanding. The second prompt was the construction of institutional capacity. Recognizing that individual brilliance flourishes within a supportive environment, she became a master architect of academic infrastructure. Her successful proposal to IBM for the grant that brought an IBM 1650 computer to NCCU in 1960 is the prime example. This was a move that vaulted the university's computational power forward by decades, providing a critical resource for faculty and students alike. It was an act of building the workshop where future mathematicians could be forged. Her tireless administrative work, securing funding and organizing programs, was the essential, often unglamorous, labor of creating a space where intellectual work could thrive. Her third strategic prong was the development of human capital on a broad scale. The Summer Institutes for Secondary School Mathematics Teachers, which she directed for 13 years, were a powerful engine for systemic change. These programs addressed a critical bottleneck in the educational pipeline. By elevating the mathematical proficiency and pedagogical sophistication of high school instructors, she was improving the quality of mathematical education for thousands of students she would never meet. This was a force multiplier, an investment in the people who shape the minds of the next generation. She was cultivating the entire intellectual landscape, ensuring the soil was fertile for future growth. The fourth and final prong, exemplified by her trust fund, was the direct nurturing of individual talent. After building the institutional framework and training the trainers, she turned her attention to the students themselves. Her scholarships were a direct intervention, removing a financial barrier and sending a clear message of belief and encouragement to aspiring mathematicians. This was a culmination of her project. Having laid the foundations and trained the artisans, she now personally sponsored the most promising apprentices, ensuring the continuity of the craft. Taken together, these 4 dimensions reveal a career of extraordinary coherence. Marjorie Lee Browne's life offers an enduring and powerful model for the modern scholar, one that demonstrates how the creation of new knowledge and the creation of new knowledge creators are inseparable facets of a truly profound intellectual legacy. Her work provides a compelling answer to the perennial question of a scholar's purpose. For her, the answer was unambiguous: to leave the entire field of mathematics, its knowledge base, its institutions, its teachers, and its students stronger and more vibrant than she found it. This integrated vision presents a formidable challenge to the conventional hierarchies that persist within academia. The prevailing reward structures often create a sharp demarcation, elevating the production of pure research above the vital work of education, mentorship, and community building. A publication in a prestigious journal frequently carries more weight in tenure decisions than years spent revolutionizing a department's curriculum or mentoring a generation of students. Brown's career implicitly rebukes this paradigm. Her life stands as a testament to the idea that a scholar's impact is measured by the total health of their intellectual ecosystem. She operated as though the mathematician who proves a new theorem and the mathematician who inspires a young student to pursue the subject are engaged in the same fundamental enterprise. Her legacy suggests that the most complete form of scholarship is one that seamlessly fuses the abstract beauty of the topological group with the concrete reality of a scholarship check, recognizing both as essential contributions to the advancement of human understanding. She was, in the end, an intellectual architect in the fullest sense, one who designed new rooms in the palace of mathematics while simultaneously ensuring the foundations were sound. The builders were skilled, and the doors were open for all who possessed the talent and the will to enter.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.